in 3, 2. Welcome home, Raiders. This week we'll have all the latest from 5.4, including a new Heirloom weapon that's got the forums all abuzz, flex mode testing, and we'll also dive into a little PvP action with our special guest. This is Convert to Raid number 107.
You're listening to Convert to Raid, the podcast for raiders in the world of Warcraft.
From the Convert to Raid Command Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota, today is August 11th, 2013, and it is now 11:10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And hello. Thanks for joining us from all around World of Warcraft land. My name is Pat Crane, your host of the show. I'm also called Zug around Airy Peak, US. And I'm still raiding. It's pugging right now, but I'm raiding. I am. And the players are with me. And we're going to go to Hollyweird first. We're going to go to Hollyweird first because we got to get to the Raging Mage, Coltrane. Hello, sir.
Fortune cookies say...
Oh, boy.
If Bob Marley played World of Warcraft, he'd be a dreadlock. Huh?
No.
Just like...
No.
Like a
Wow.
dreadlock?
Wow.
No.
Huh?
Wow.
No.
Is that
Wow.
no good?
No.
Come
No.
on, the dreadlock.
That's never good.
See, now, this time I could get my actual literal facepalm out there, so I don't have to tell you that I just did an actual literal facepalm
Right.
at your fortune cookie.
Yes.
Well,
This
Sounds
time it's on
to me like
video.
you loved it, Olivia. You loved it.
well,
That's right.
those lovely tones that you're hearing are from our special guest from Zam, WoW Insider, my cohort over at Legendary on GameBreaker.tv, and she's like everywhere in World of Warcraft. Olivia Grace. Olivia, hello.
Hello! It's so nice to be on a podcast that isn't in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Amazing!
You're all excited
I'm so
because you're actually awake for it.
I am awake. It's 5 p.m. my time. It's usually 12 hours ahead of this when I'm doing these live podcasts. It's
Wow.
great.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Olivia, she's in the UK, so the majority of the shows that she does is like literally 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
This is true. So if you're
Wow.
wondering why I don't look really tired, that's because I'm not.
That's amazing. Well, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you on again. It's been a long time since we've had you on this show.
It's been a really long time.
I know. It's been like over a year.
That's
That's
right.
weird.
In fact, last time you were on, it was you and Mike B, right? Talking PvP.
I've been on here once since then when you were AFK, I think.
Oh,
Ah,
that's right.
That's right.
It was
That's
an
right.
emergency, and frankly, vastly inferior stand-in for the Raging
No,
Mage.
actually quite the
I
opposite.
had neither enough rage nor enough mage, and it was
Right.
it was a nightmare.
Right.
Wow.
Not enough rage nor enough mage.
That's right. I love it.
That's good.
Oh, quick thing. Spencer HD from Airy Peak sending that wonderful fortune cookie.
well,
thank
thank
you,
you. Thank you, Spencer. You're a great help to the show.
That's right. It is a
And if
great
you-
help to the show.
And if you can't tell, I'm being a little sarcastic.
And also is Olivia. In fact, a message was sent in
Oh,
from Bazog on Draenor EU. He says, the Convert to Raid show was fine, but now it has some grace.
Oh,
Huh? What do you think?
that's a nice.
That's right.
It's a nice sentiment.
Good
It's
job.
it's a little
It is.
cheese ball.
I like it.
oh, it's all good though.
Right.
You can work with that.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about what we've been doing in WoW this week, over the last week or so. Coltrane, what's going on with you, man?
Well, old Coltrane got himself a nice package in the mail. I
Yeah.
got a nice
Yeah.
package
Yeah.
in the mail.
Yeah.
It was mailed to me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't my intent. And
Just skip right over that. It's fine. Don't worry
inside
about it.
this package was something that me and my fellow left-handed players have been waiting for a long time. And that is a left-handed Razor Naga.
Hey, wait, hold on.
Oh,
You get big applause for that
Yes.
one, buddy.
Huge applause for that.
That's good.
So I was extremely ecstatic. I get it out of the box. It's a big deal because Nagas have only been for right-handed. Like us left-handers, you know, from the days of the Power Glove back in the 80s.
Right.
Like nothing's for lefties. It's all for you right-handed people.
Right.
So I get this thing and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the Naga. I'm so excited. And do Olivia, Pat, do you guys have a Naga?
No, I have the not a Naga one. It's Death Adder, I believe. Is what it's
there
called.
You go. Olivia's got one. Okay, so Olivia, let me ask you this. So the first time I sit down with this Naga, I plug it in, I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
What the hell? Like, I didn't understand. It was so confusing and awkward and funky. And is that like normal when you first try out a Naga?
I guess so. Like when I first, you have it set up. There's two ways to set it up. One is the number pad setup, and one is the across the top of the keyboard setup. And for some reason, the number pad setup works with my brain because when I first started it, I looked at those thumb buttons and I was like, yeah, this obviously ties up to here. And so I sort of was able to mentally transfer that from there to there. And that worked really well. But the thing is, I don't know if you can see this. I don't know if my quality is good enough. You see these two buttons here?
Yes.
Yeah.
They used to be here.
Oh, now these
which was frankly a much better spot for them. So now you have to do this sort of, I don't even know, like, how do you even hit those? But yeah, it is. It's a crazy thing. And it's hard, it takes a little bit of getting used to. Use the textured stickers. They provide you with textured stickers.
Right. I didn't know what those were for. I put them all over my body. I didn't know what.
Just covered in them.
I just put them all over.
Nice.
But it's a crazy thing because a typical mouse, you know, I'm used to a certain setup for years, and now it's all like thumb action. You know, it's like crazy, all these buttons. Right, so I can see the power within, but I'm still getting used to this thing. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
I think you just got to use those texture stickers on the side and like put them onto the stuff that you want to use regularly, and then your thumb will get used to where it needs to be.
Right. Gotcha. Now, I was actually thinking about getting it because they came out with a new model of you know, mouse, and so I'm like going, you know, this looks a little bit better. It's a little bit more contoured, and it's I think before it was, well, I don't know if my thumb is going to be able to tell the difference between 1 and 5, right, 4 or whatever. You know, just because they were all just kind of lumped along the side in the same pattern. Right. Now I think it might be a little bit different. I don't know.
No, it's true, and I got a pretty big thumb here. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of like, well, I'm hitting 5, but I'm hitting 3. I mean, I don't have like Hobbit hands, but you know, it's a pretty good sized thumb. So that covers a lot of ground.
Yeah,
so just be aware of that.
I actually hit the back ones with this part of my thumb and the front ones with the tip. So I'm almost rocking my thumb over them.
Oh.
I don't know if that's what I'm meant to do or not.
Right.
Like I was talking to someone who has one of the Logitech G600, G650. And they actually move their thumb back.
Right.
My hand doesn't work like that. My hand's not able to do those crazy kind of acrobatics. So I just do. Well, but I think the new one, has mechanical keys on the side, so it's in sort of two V-shaped like valleys of keys or something.
Right. Yeah. That's what it looks like. And so I might have to go check that out at some point. Liv, what have you been up to this week?
I've been doing actually an absolute ton of the Worlds of Warcraft this week. I was in a foul mood on Monday, so I did what I always do when I'm in a foul mood. So I got my little baby feral druid, which has every heirloom available.
Yeah.
For feral druid, and I went and hid in the Warsong Gulch flag room and murdered people.
Wow.
Yep, I'm just going to be here waiting for you to jump down, get that flag. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you in the face.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I would always do. Like if I had like a Lobby, like Night Elf Hunter. I had a Night Elf Hunter for a while that was just kind of, you know, sitting at level 19 or something like that. And I would just, you know, shadow meld and just wait. Just sit there.
That's what I
just go, I'm just hanging out. Oh, here comes somebody.
Like,
hang on.
Just to the side. So if you were standing in the Alliance flag room where the flag is, just to the right, that's where I stand. I just literally stand there. I'm just like, just waiting.
Yep.
I've got the whatever, I can't remember the name of the achievement, but I've got like the 100 flag returns achievement.
That's awesome.
Like I just sit there and I'm just like.
So now do you go? So you go feral? You go feral for that?
I'm not even that good at it. I'm just lucky, and I have a lot of heirlooms.
Right.
But yeah, I feral. That's the only druid spec I know how to do. And I think I'm leveling purely by returning flags in Warsong Gulch.
That's awesome.
So I'm now at level 35. I just gained 35 on Monday.
Hey, awesome. And you're doing a lot of are you still doing a lot of PTR?
I'm doing a ton of PTR. I've actually that was Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
I've had trouble drawing myself away from the PTR to play on live servers. I have been having a ridiculous amount of fun. I don't know what you guys are sort of up with spoilering this stuff, but the Timeless Isle, oh my god, it's so good.
We've definitely talked about it. I mean, as far as like, you know, there not being quests and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What are you finding that is the most fun for you over on the Timeless Isle?
Just I went and ground out the coins to get this thing, and I can never remember the name of it. I think it's Sensor of Enduring Agony.
Oh yeah.
Or something along those lines. It's the hostile to everyone thing.
Right.
So I went and got that, and I just equip that and just go kill people.
So what exactly happened?
So you get this thing and you equip it. You don't equip it, you use it. So you use it in your bag, and it's got a long cast time. It pulls you down to 10% of your health. But I'm doing this on a priest. So I'm just building, like, you know, heal myself straight back up again. And I was doing it on my elemental shaman, but actually I'm having much more fun doing it on the priest for some reason. And I'm just, then you are hostile to Alliance, you are hostile to Horde, you are hostile to everybody. And obviously if you are doing it on a PvE server, you have to be flagged PvP for them to attack you. So they can't just attack someone who is just pure PvE. But if you're PvP flagged, I'm going to get you. Oh yeah.
Right.
And the thing is that you can hear you can still read your faction's chat. And I was doing it on my elemental shaman the other day, and I feel like an awful person because elemental shaman damage is ridiculous on the PTR at the moment. It really needs some nerf. I'm just like, I'm gonna drop this totem, and I'm gonna drop this totem, and I'm gonna hit these two abilities, and you're gonna die.
That's awesome. Now,
it's just crazy. It's so much fun.
Does your character change? Does your character change?
Yeah,
like,
your
how they look?
character becomes all sort of iridescent and translucent and glowy. It's kind of like if you had a hunter camouflage, but also glowing sort of orange. You become an emissary of Ordos, who is that legendary boss.
Yeah, he's that legendary boss. And okay, so guys, when I don't know if you know this, but Colt, you and I and Olivia were all on Legendary this week, and one of the things that we found out, Olivia, you have a little piece of gear that Blizz has named after you, and it's a shaman helm.
Yeah,
and we found out this week who that drops off of. Why don't you tell people which boss that drops off of?
It drops off of Ordos, which is the one which has the legendary cloak requirement.
Yeah.
So going back a few weeks, we were talking on legendary. I don't think Colt was there, but I think Colt was in, and Bashiok was also in chat room.
Yeah.
And I was ranting about how I think the legendary cloak boss is a stupid idea. And it shouldn't be done like that. And it's just the most idiotic thing because loads of people don't have it. I haven't even picked up the legendary quest.
Right.
And it's just like, so now I'm going to have to do it. But fortunately, on Wednesday World of Warcraft I have just been starting on US servers. I've got a US account, gone on to US servers, and I've just got my level 90 shaman, and I'm about to get a level 90 priest.
Wow.
And doing with refer a friend. So my God, the leveling is fast.
Right.
I think I've got 28 hours of slash played on the 90 shaman.
Wow.
And slightly less on the priest.
Wow.
And it's just like, right, the priest isn't 90 yet, but the shaman is. And the shaman is already at 472 eye level as well.
Wow.
Wow.
That's crazy. You get big applause for that. So so that's cool. That's great. And you were okay. So I saw a tweet about you saying something about LFR on US servers that was eye-opening for you.
That was that's the WoW Insider. What are you playing weekly?
Oh, that's right. It was the WoW Insider thing.
It's weekly column, which is what are you playing over the weekend? And I was talking about how some of the US server experiences have been a bit like whoa to me as someone who plays. It's really interesting. Just the different. I don't know. People are different. Is that my dog barking?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's a great dog, by the way. If you haven't seen Liv's dog, it's great.
It's huge.
Awesome.
I have 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just been kind of it's a different environment. It's a very different environment, and there's very different sort of cultural sides. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm quite assertive in the EU ones, whereas in the US ones I just sort of sit back and wait. And I'm just like,
well, are the American ones more hostile? Is that like what you're saying?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, a little bit more uppercase typing in the US LFRs.
Well, it's just things like, and there are certain servers which people seem to have a real issue with, like Quell Dallas or something like that. And people are like, "Oh, if someone's from Quell Dallas, so we might as well just kick them now. This is worse." And I'm like, "Huh?"
Right.
Some servers do have a bad rep.
There is some truth about that server. I mean, come on. If we're just talking plainly, I mean, Quell's the last. I mean,
send all your hate mail to to Colt.
That's right.
Please.
Yeah, Quell Dallas. That's right.
I think that's Dave's server.
It's just like, it's a really interesting, like, it's weird, like the dynamic. I don't know, like in a dungeon group in the EU where you go in and say, "Oh, this is my first run," and again, maybe it's just because I'm in the group, and I like in the groups where I am, I'm like, "Oh, well, if it's your first run, I've tanked this 1,000,000 times, I've healed this 1,000,000 times. Let me tell you exactly how to do it. We're gonna have a great time."
Yeah.
And and I'll be going through, going, "Oh yeah, that was really good. You're doing well." And like the other people will join in and be like, "Yeah, this is great. Well done." Like, was it okay? Yeah, you're doing fine. And well, the US ones, they just get vote kicked.
Right. Right. Yeah, we don't talk to anybody. We just vote kick them.
Exactly. This is my first time.
This is my first time. Kick the dude. Kick him right now.
Vote kick an LFR that was a completely unreasonable vote kick. Like, it was just, they were vote kicked because they were from the tank was terrible. We had a terrible tank.
Yeah.
And they vote kicked the tank, which was perfectly fair because he was terrible. He was in full DPS gear. He wasn't taunting. Terrible, terrible tank. Fair enough. And then they vote kicked 3 other people for being from his server.
What?
What?
Look, that's how we do it around here, all right? On this side of the fence. That's America. That's right.
That's great. Don't do that, guys. Don't do that. Come on. Come on.
Well, to nice around here.
Maybe Ragnarok? I have trouble remembering the server names because, like, to me over here, Ragnaros is one of the German PvP servers. So I don't know whether I don't know. But it was just like, wow, really? That's terrible. I mean, I've only done 4 or 5 LFRs. So maybe it's, I've just had an unfortunate selection. I don't really have a representative sample base right now, but it's not even interesting.
Are you playing Alliance?
No, I'm actually playing Horde.
Wow. I was gonna say, we should, get together and do some flex rating together once that comes out and stuff like that.
We'll probably roll an Alliance too.
But now we can't. Now we can't.
I don't feel right just having Horde tunes. And the people I'm RAFing with have like run out of Horde tune capacity. So we're probably going to go roll some Alliance tunes anyhow.
There you go. Good. Always good to hear. All right. Well, maybe we should get into the raid news.
Calling all raiders from around World of Warcraft land. This is raiding news.
All right, it's time to check out what's happening with raiding news around World of Warcraft, and there is a bunch of stuff happening, or starting this week, actually. There's going to be Ghostcrawler was tweeting about this. There's going to be a dev water cooler released tomorrow, and Blizz is going to start doing their pre-patch interviews, their pre-patch 5.4 interviews starting this week, and so it looks like 5.4 is getting closer, like tangible. Woo. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And so even though we have talked about 5.4 quite a bit on this show, we are going to basically be switching all of our attention to that patch. I think we're kind of done with 5.3.
Absolutely.
Like with stuff coming, that's new and all that kind of stuff. So, but before we get into more detail on 5.4, Colt and I have a little public service announcement that we want to bring to you guys right now.
Hi, I'm Coltrane.
And I'm Pat Crane.
And we are here today to talk to you about an ongoing issue.
It's an issue that affects most of us, especially warlocks.
It's a condition called IFO-WIS-PTRN. I freak out when I see PTR notes.
That's right, Colt, and it affects 1 in 5 Azerothians.
That's a pretty scary statistic, Pat. Almost as scary as that time I thought Blizzard was removing Blink for mages.
Ha! That's right. You really freaked out there. Like, really freaked out.
I wet 'ems, Pat, and I have the stain to prove it.
A badge of honor.
We at the Let's Not Freak Out About the PTR Society are looking to help you.
Bring us your tired, your poor, your tanks upset about vengeance.
We can provide the support and care you need to move on from those patch notes and get on with your life.
This is Timmy. He was a warlock upset about the removal of Killjaden's cunning. And, well, let's let him tell the story.
I was first upset when I read the patch notes. Now, thanks to the LNFOAT PTRS, I no longer want to burn my loins with green fire and poop everywhere.
Thank you, Timmy.
And thank you for not pooping.
If you have a loved one who may be suffering or find yourself with these symptoms, please call us.
1-800-CALM-THE-F-DOWN. Operators are standing by.
Call today. I'm not just a founder, but a member as well.
Right, like when you read Blizzard was removing the classic Druid tree form.
Oh, Coltrane, you just had to bring this up now, didn't you?
Call 1-800-CALM-THE-F-DOWN. That's 1-800-CALM-THE-F-DOWN. Or visit your nearest LNFAOT PTRS center today.
Burn with fire and poop everywhere!
All right, so that was dumb. That got a little intense.
It did. It really got out of hand there.
Really?
That's fantastic.
Got a little intense.
I'm glad we got it out there, though.
Yeah, but we do need to say, you know, it's still it's the PTR. It's for testing.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a bunch of stuff going on, and some people are not very happy.
No.
Warlocks, hunters, paladins, maybe.
Right.
Those guys, and nobody ever, complains on the forums or anything like that.
No.
It's because we have nice people all throughout. All throughout.
That's why operators are standing by.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so for patch 5.4, getting into the details a little bit, it looks like we're getting close. There's going to be a dev water cooler post from Ghostcrawler tomorrow, and to kind of discuss what the thoughts were behind all the different class changes going on for 5.4, and there are quite a bit. Liv, what do you think we can expect in this post? We've kind of done this before. We've seen this stuff before, right?
Yeah, I strongly suspect it's going to be a lot of this is part of Blizzard's drive for better transparency. They're trying to be a little bit less of the sort of ivory tower and the sort of ever going on this quest to try and be more clear and be more open. Mm-hmm. And it makes people like you better if you're a little bit more, well, the reason why we did this is because X, Y, and Z. Right. And there's going to be sort of philosophy. And if you remember, there was one that he did for PvP specific before, where he was like, right, these have been problem classes. These are the steps we've taken. These are why we've taken these steps. And it's probably not going to reveal I'm not expecting it to reveal a ton of new information, but I am expecting it to sort of clarify a lot of what's been taking place on the PTR. And there have been some considerable changes. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what that is.
What are some of the big changes that really concern you?
To be completely honest, my attitude to class changes is always very much a wait and see. Mm-hmm. Like I tend to not read patch notes and then make assumptions based on that. So I don't tend to look at, say, for example, they're nerfing Lava Burst for Elemental Shaman with the next patch note, with the next PTR build, excuse me. And I look at that and I'm like, well, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, my attitude is always we'll have to wait and see because there can be so many unpredictable elements of this. Right. And for example, like the new Frost Mage Mastery, the Icicle thing. Yep. And people have been freaking out about that and saying, oh, well, it's going to nerf Frost Mage Burst. And, like a lot of the stuff that they're doing seems to me to be sort of like, it makes sense that they're making changes in these areas. But it's, we've still got to see what happens. Like you can't tell exactly how it's going to be. Right. We're not that good at, well, maybe you guys are that good at math.
No, you're just, wait, hold on a second. Us two good at math? No. No, that's why Darius is normally on the show. By the way, Darius will be back next week. And Colt, you'll be gone next week. But Darius will be back. And then we'll also have Derevka on next week.
Oh, he's good at math. He's good at math.
He's great at both those guys are good at math. Colt and I though,
not so much.
I know I'm horrible at math. So
we're more left lobe brain or right.
Whatever brain. The one that doesn't do numbers, that's one.
That's right.
You're not neurology either. Neither neurology nor math.
Right. Science of any kind pretty much escapes us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it looks like we're probably going to be wrapping. I mean, with this and with some other things that G Street Ghostcrawler was saying, sounds like we're kind of done with balancing or with the mechanics of the class changes, and now it just kind of comes down to balancing numbers and stuff like that. So, it looks like we're getting close, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing. And I think it's also great that they are getting in front of the incoming train as far as Ghostcrawler going to make a post about everything, like Kill Jaden's Cunning, right?
Yeah.
They made the change to Kill Jaden's Cunning, or at least in the PTR notes. Everybody freaked out. Then Laura made a post about it. Be like, look, here's why. Here's the motivation.
Right.
The same thing they did with Paladins when the Eternal Flame changed. You know, everybody freaked out about that. And they said, here's why. So I think it's kind of smart to kind of get in front of it and talk about here's where we're thinking this is going, here's where we're thinking that is going. So, because otherwise players are going to draw their own conclusions, and it's usually always Blizzard hates Raiders, and Blizzard hates Warlocks, and Blizzard hates Hunters. So they're saying, look, here's our motivation for doing this. You can still think that, but, you know, here's why we're doing this. So I think it's good to get in front of it, and so we understand why versus players drawing their own conclusions.
Well, and it was kind of funny because I think it was yesterday, and I don't even have this right now, but it's Ghostcrawler went on Twitter and was talking about how, you know, hey guys, we know that you know there are some concerns with different classes and stuff like that, but being the loudest on the forums is not always the best way to get our attention. They have to, because these guys have to like weed through all of this stuff, and if it's just a pile of crap, I mean, nobody wants to read that, you know? I mean, it's just tough to get through to like the good stuff where they're actually talking about constructive criticism and all that kind of stuff. So it's got to be tough to be a dev and go through all that all that garbage.
The community managers are the ones who have to go through that and filter that to become useful to the developers.
Right.
And I mean, it seems like if you read some of these threads, there's so many people going, "Oh, hunters are broken," and you know, but what they're not doing is saying, here's what is broken about hunters. These specific abilities are interacting in this problematic way, or this damage is too low, this damage is too high. Like they're just saying, "Oh, hunters are broken, fix hunters." And when they come back and say, "How shall we fix the hunter community?" They're like, "Well, you should know."
Exactly.
Well, you should already know. And especially it's really funny seeing some of the conversations on Twitter, because you're so restricted with you know 140 characters or whatever. And so it's like, okay, well, now not only do I only have rage, now you only see one sentence of it, and here you go. Rah!
Yeah.
You hate shadow priests. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
They do hate shadow priests. I actually asked Blizzard, and they were like, "Yeah, no, we do."
Yeah,
totally.
Clearly.
We really do. And let's move it along to this other thing, because I really want to get to this, because we talked a little bit about it on Legendary, actually quite a bit about it on Legendary. But the big thing this week has been in relation to a few weapons that were data mined a few weeks ago that have changed a little bit now on the PTR, because they're listed now as heirloom weapons that only fall from flex, normal, and heroic versions of the Garrosh encounter, not Raid Finder.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have some weapons, and they're heirloom from 90 to 100. So you guys think we're going to be going to 100 this next expansion, right?
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yep.
100, baby.
Yeah.
I was going for it.
Well, and you brought up some good points on Legendary, and one was that you'll be leveling faster, and let's hope that's the case, because I was out on my I was out leveling my shaman this weekend, and man, 85 to 90, snail's crawl. Oh,
right.
I tell you what, the secret is 2 tunes, 2 of them, because you just alternate the rested. You do done.
Right.
You know, do you want to know how I got this shaman from 85 to 89? Pure dungeons. And
Really?
it was literally just like alternate the shaman rested with the priest rested. And because I'm healing on both, the keys are like that.
Right.
And it's like, yep, we're done. And then 89 to 90 dread wastes. Head over to Den Claxy, that dread wastes.
Yep.
And you're done.
Yep.
And in reference to what Pat was saying as far as like leveling faster, the idea is if you've got 10 levels, So right now, when you hear like, oh my gosh, 10 levels, it took this long to do 5. Now we got to do 10.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the feel.
Right. But the idea is, imagine if it took the same amount of time for 5 levels and it'll take that for 10. So it's going to be faster. You know what I mean? So in one night, you're going to make a lot of progress on your XP bar and maybe gain a level a night. Like, I think it's more rewarding for players if they can level 1, 2, 3, 4 right away versus a slow crawl for 5. Right. So it's just something to consider, that it might be actually a quicker leveling experience with 10 levels versus 5.
Right.
Well, I can't imagine, like, we were chatting about this on Legendary, and Colt made the great point of just like, you just see that purple bar moving across so much faster. Yeah. And it's like, it feels like you're doing more. And I can't, and I brought this up myself, I can't imagine that, given that they already nerfed the XP requirements before the final patch of this expansion, they already nerfed it by a third. Was it 5.2 that they did that? Sorry, my dog's laughing again.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was 5.2 when they did that.
Yeah. So it's just like, they did that 2 patches in, and it's just like, they're not going to be doing it so that you have to do the initial missed leveling experience. They're going to be cutting this way, way back.
Well,
and it's going to be amazing.
I think part of the reason that they did that in 5.2 instead of waiting longer was because people were so irate about this expansion being so alt unfriendly. I mean, especially 5.0, right? 5.0 was like, dailies, and more dailies. If you wanted to raid, you had to go grind all this rep. You had to do all this stuff. And I think that was their way of saying, sorry, now you can bring up another alt to 90 at least and have some options. How's that sound, guys?
Yeah.
And then people went, this is a small gesture.
Well,
but we're still pissed.
Slightly less angry.
Right.
So my one of the girls in my guild, my EU guild, said, it's like, oh, good. Now I can do dailies on more characters. Great.
I mean, there's some truth there. I mean, a huge criticism of this expansion has been these dailies. And I think the real thing that they kind of messed up is that they put this gear, this like required gear that you needed to get on these dailies vendors. So that gave this feeling that you had to do these dailies. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, it had that requirement.
Yeah, and it was not only a rep requirement, it was also a valor requirement. So I mean, it was like rep and double gate. What the? So, but let's talk a little bit about these heirloom weapons.
Woo.
Let's get into it.
Let's dive deep.
Right. So these are heirloom weapons for 90 to 100. These weapons will last you through the next expansion to level up to level cap again. And there's no XP gains on them, just so you guys know. But they are only available in group content, which means Flex, Normal, and Heroic, not LFR. So, Colt, I want to get to your point first, because I know that you have some rage about this. So go for it.
So here's the deal, Lucille.
Yeah.
I have kind of come around. Now, I'm a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Now, human beings have what we call free will, which means we can change our minds or opinion, right? So here's the deal.
Yeah.
Many months ago, when I was like hardcore raiding and all that kind of stuff, there was some back and forth about LFR, right?
Yeah.
But I've kind of come to this like realization truly about a whole new level of respect in a way for LFR. Because there are a lot of people out there with crazy schedule that have got family, that have got kids, that have got work, that they work late, or they have strange work schedules that makes it so they physically cannot commit the time to a normal raid team. They've got an unpredictable schedule or whatever. So LFR is the only way that they can see this content. It's the only way that they can raid.
Right.
And that's a great thing. So there's some people out there that say, well, LFR isn't true raiding and it's not real raiders. But I completely disagree. These are raiders. These are people that are getting to see this content. So because of that, I think that LFR should have the same rights, like we said, equal loot rights for all. And I think LFR should be able to have access to these weapons and not just be restricted to normal and flex.
Okay. All right.
That's my opinion.
All right. So,
and I'm right. But go ahead.
But Liv, what are your thoughts on this?
I kind of fall between the lines here. I'm disappointingly on the fence. Like, I can totally see Coltrane makes a great point. However, I think that I don't know that people are anticipating what Flex is going to be like. I think it's really, really worth remembering that Flex is in wings.
Yeah.
Flex is winged, just like LFR.
It is.
And furthermore, it's actually accessible with smaller groups than 10. So, for example, I was on the PTR and I thought, oh, God, I should do some Flex because I'm going on Convert to Raid. And that's a show for raiders in the world of Warcraft.
Right.
So I should, try and get on board with this. And we killed Immerse. I mean, okay, admittedly, it's Immerse. So, take from that what you will. But with 8 people. And, I mean, there's going to be the way the wings work. And I can't remember which wing is which. But these drop from Garrosh. He's obviously in the last wing. And I'm almost certain it's going to be the case that just like in LFR, you're going to have to have done all the wings in Flex to get access to the last one. I don't know that that's the case, but that's what I'm presuming.
That's the way LFR is. So, yeah, I mean, that would kind of make sense.
Maybe there'll be an achievement that gets you over into like the Flex one from the LFR. I don't know.
Right.
But nonetheless. So thing one to remember is that you can go straight into the last wing. And I have a sneaking suspicion that there may be more than one pug group per week to do that last wing.
Right.
People may pug this in trade, and it may be available more regularly than never for people who are on weird schedules, for people who are, having a harder time. And don't forget also, we've got cross-realm. This is cross-realmable, so you can use things like Open Raid, you can use things like OQ. There are various tools to get you into this raid at stupid o'clock in the morning. And,
Right.
Guess what? It's always raid o'clock somewhere.
Right.
There's always going to be raids happening somewhere. So there's that to bear in mind. There's definitely a lot of ways that people who do have crazy schedules can get access to this content. And I don't think there's going to be a huge problem. That being said, if you are genuinely a pure LFR raider, like you don't have the ability to, you don't want to, for whatever reason, and there's no right or wrong way to play this game.
No.
And if you are an LFR person, fantastic. But you will be able to zip through to 90, to 100, and then get some friends, go back and get it for your alts. It's going to be fine. This is going to be content which is doable, particularly in the Flex difficulty, with smaller groups of level 100 players. So, there's a ton of stuff there's a ton of mitigants. While Colt makes a fantastic argument, there's a ton of mitigants to the problem. It's not as bad as it sounds.
Right.
And yes, so sorry, people are asking in chat room. Yes, Flex is cross-realm.
Yes.
So you can absolutely use OQ. You can absolutely use Open Raid.
Yes.
I'm trying to think if there are other services I've missed that offer that kind of thing. But
right. Well, and it's on a totally different lockout, so you don't have to worry about that conflicting with anything else.
Yep.
And so that's really great. And I know that we're going to talk a little bit about Flex on the PTR in a little bit here, but it does sound... and I'm kind of on the fence here too, because one of the things that I like about something like this item being only available in group content, and I know that LFR, you can, it's a group deal with 25 people, but you can, sign up individually and say, hey, I want to raid. So I kind of consider LFR to be more individual. And so getting into this group content, into this team content, I like the fact that they're trying to figure out what the carrot is going to be. Because this is what I really like about this game. I really like the community aspect. I really like group content, going in with friends and doing stupid stuff, beating up on, digital monsters. I love that. I love it. So, anything to get people more into that and into group content, and especially with Flex, I think that Flex really does kind of provide a new thing for people with weird schedules to say, you know what, I can join this group, but I might not necessarily be there every week. Mm-hmm. That's okay. You don't have to commit to every week. That's the best part about Flex. So
yeah.
It's on a separate lockout too, like you said. So that's great. And boy, Olivia does make a great point that with Open Raid and all that, and it being cross-realm,
Yep.
It will be a lot easier that you can log on at 2 o'clock in the morning,
Yep.
sign up for your open raid, and probably pug in and find a flex raid that you can do.
And don't forget about connected realms either. I mean, connected realms, virtual realms, it's the same thing. We still don't have a lot of information about it, but it sounds like, low pop realms are going to be able to, have more people to pick from. So now it won't be one guy sitting in Stormwind. It'll be hopefully a lot more than that at any given time than just one.
Yeah, and I mean, like it's going to make all servers much more busy. I mean, we've sort of talked about how people we talked about on Legendary about how people maybe they're not going to roll out as quickly as people have anticipated.
Right.
But like, for example, I mean, pugging rated battleground is something that I do a lot of because I'm now, alas, too busy to commit to a regular rated battleground team.
Mm-hmm.
And so consider the number of people who raid versus the number of people who do RBGs. So let's just mush that around in the head there for a moment. Think about that. It's a lot less. Spoiler. But nonetheless, I log on at stupid o'clock in the morning when I'm done working.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, yeah, right, chilling out, got my beer, gonna pug me some RBGs. Now, if I go onto my PvP, one of the PvP servers I play on, so Outland, for example, it's gonna be easy. I'm gonna sit in trade chat for 30 seconds, pick up a pug, and I'm gonna go. If I go onto the PvE server because I'm trying to get a new character geared up as a PvE gear so I can do some PvP with my friends, then it's just, it's OQ. I go onto OQ, and thanks to that, I mean, Open Raid is fantastic as well, but RBG pugs are often quite sort of spur of the moment, so Open Raid is better for organizing in advance, whereas OQ is fantastic for, okay, now!
Right.
And, it never normally takes more than 15, 20 minutes before I am literally in a rated battleground. And people use it for heroic scenarios as well. And it's a fantastic tool to get to do this sort of content, which is cross-realm. And it's going to make all of the servers eventually with time connected realms. It's going to make all the servers similar to that PvP server I'm on, where it's just like, well, there you go. That was easy.
Right.
And it's going to be fine. But I do also think that there's a real, like you were saying, there's a real value in offering that carrot for people to move up into the organized content.
And and that's exactly what I like about this idea. I understand that people that are strictly LFR folk are kind of upset about this. I understand that. But at the same time, there will be opportunities to do this. I think more opportunities, especially with Flex. And then there's the thing where there's nothing really tied to this weapon other than it will scale with you as you do content up to level 100.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing that's really being done. I mean, it may look cool, and I still don't know if have we seen the actual look of these.
Yeah,
things?
they are scaled. They're modeled on the old Horde PvP weapons from back in the day.
Right. So they will look a little retro. It's good. But other than that, I mean, there's not really much for these things, right?
Yeah, it's a good thing, and I like it that it's just a weapon. Back in I think it was Wrath of the Lich King, 25-man was separate from the 10-man gear.
Yeah,
and it was like I remember being in a 10-man guild, and all the cool stuff was in 25. So at least it's just a weapon. And with these flex rating, there's tools that it's easier for an LFR raider to get into normal rating. So and you're right, it's just stats. There's no XP gain. I think if there was like increases experience by 10%, I think there would be like rage. You know what I mean? But
and
at least it's not.
I think that would be understandable too. One of the comparisons that I have for it is, to me, it kind of reminds me of like what a rating mount is. The mounts that drop off the last boss for Arthas for ICC. You can get the mount. Great.
Right.
And this kind of feels like that a little bit. The mount is probably actually cooler. So
yeah, it's interesting. Like Heroic Rags drops like a really cool mount, and it's funny. I haven't really heard a lot of like uproar about that kind of thing. You know what I mean? That why is this mount only available in Heroic? And because I think maybe normal raiders like, well, if Ragnaros has a whole separate phase in Heroic, so if there's a mount that drops, I understand.
Yeah, I don't get it. Now, is there a line that Blizzard can draw where they won't get like slammed for saying, oh no, we're just gonna do this for group content, we're just gonna do this for like group rating? Is there a line where they can say, okay, this this loot is only going to be for group rating and not for LFR, and not get like all this hate from people that only do LFR.
That's a slippery slope. I'm
Slippery
telling you.
slope.
It's a slippery slope. They got to be careful with that. And there's a reality here. Like, players are very passionate, especially the rating community, right?
Right.
So there's some people that feel that LFR, like I was saying earlier, is not true rating and vice versa. I just ask both sides, keep an open mind, understand people have different schedules and different lives. But I think if they just restrict, like, well, this is only for group play, I think that that's going to cause outrage. And there's people right now listening to that going, but what are you talking about? LFRs and real rating, they shouldn't get the same gear. I think they should. We should all be together and in love and hold each other to the bosom of loot, because it's bountiful. And we should all enjoy that loot. So I don't know. If they start restricting a lot of stuff, I think you're going to get a lot of outrage. And there's already been enough right now. And this is just a single weapon.
Right.
If they start doing all this gear and trinkets and all this other kind of stuff, I think there's just going to be rage on the forums.
Yeah.
And
I
rage
think
from me.
I think rage from you on the forums. And just generally.
Yeah, that's right. Just generally.
But it's like, I don't know. I have no objection to this. Like, but then it's easy for me to say as someone who, doesn't really, like, my main thing in WoW isn't raiding. Like, that's not the biggest deal to me. But also I have a regular raid team.
Right.
And I will have no problem getting these weapons. So it's easy for me to say. But I think it's kind of good to have the carrot and stick a little. Like, there's nothing else being, if they started taking other stuff out of LFR, like, and putting that into Flex, then there'd come a point, if they started, for example, if they took tier out of LFR,
right,
that would be uncool. That would be desperately unfair, because then that's too big a gap. It makes it harder for people to transition up a difficulty.
Sure.
And that's another thing that I think is really, really important to remember about these weapons, is that they're not going to have, although obviously a weapon is nice, don't misunderstand me, but they're not going to have a massive impact on people who want to go from LFR up to the next level of the next tier of raiding.
Sure.
I think that's really important, that Blizzard have to maintain a system where it's easy for people to transition up. So it should be easy for people to go from LFR to Flex, from Flex to normal, from normal to heroic, without being massively held back by gear. And because these weapons are in addition to all the other weapon drops in the raid, I think it's okay.
Sure. Well, let's go down that tier thing, just that road real quick. Now, what if they were to, and I think even Lore, I know, had a post that said that they were not going to remove tier for LFR, but it sounds like that may have been part of the discussion, was, okay, can we just do tier for group rating? So for Flex and above, can we do that? And is there a point where that becomes okay? And I don't know if there's a real, I think that the answer right now would be no. from everybody that's listening to this, they would go, no. Unless, of course, they're a heroic raider, in which case they go, I don't care. But I think the only way that they could do that would be as if they made the LFR gear almost like it was more powerful, even though the item level was lower. If the item levels were equal, that the LFR gear would be more powerful to make up for the fact that they don't have the tier gear, the different procs and stuff like that go on with that. But I don't know. That's
I
tough.
don't see that. I don't see that, because tier gear is a lot more luck reliant because that would make LFR gear actually superior. Because obviously your tier is only at its maximum potential when you've got all 4 pieces of it.
Right.
So then if you did that, you'd have this weird situation where you were better off to run LFR to get all your stuff, and then you were better off to do the roulette wheel with Flex.
Yep.
To then fill in those. Do you see what I mean? I'm not trying to pick holes in your theory, but I'm just trying to see how that would work.
But it's like the tier gear. Once you hit the 4-piece, you'd be fine.
You'd be fantastic.
You'd be great to go into normals or whatever.
Yeah.
But until that point, maybe LFR gear would be slightly overpowered considering its eye level. Of course, you got to scale everything.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but they.
I think they're trying to put the social. I think they're trying to put this. One of the things that they're looking at here is trying to put the social element back in, because there's been endless complaints from people about how looking for group systems have destroyed the social aspect of WoW and made it impossible to make friends and made it really difficult to actually engage with other people, because like I'm seeing on the American servers, we all just go in, do stuff, leave, and maybe just rage at each other for a little while. And I'm not pretending it's any different on European servers. It's just different rage. And it's that's not great for the social aspect of WoW. Whereas where you've actually got to make a group and take that group and then go into it, at least there's a little bit more conversation, there's a little bit more interaction, and there's maybe a little bit more of a community.
Sure.
And I mean, it's this real convenience versus community thing.
Yep.
And like heroic scenarios. When I manage to get on in the daytime or I use OQ, I'm like, this is fine. When I'm starting stuff at 5 a.m., then I'm like, well, this kind of sucks. I wish I could just hit a join the queue button. Right. And it's like, I can totally see both aspects of it. But I've made some friends on servers I play on through doing heroic scenarios. Like, oh, that was really good. Should we try and do this again tomorrow? Add you on social. I've added you on. When did you last add someone on social? Like doing LFG content only. When did you actually last say to someone, oh, let's be friends. You're good. I'll remember you for the next time I do this.
Right.
Good point. Yeah.
And it's going to take people a while to get back into that mentality. I mean, I know you guys were playing before the Dungeon Finder appeared.
Yes.
But remember what it was like then? Where you sat in trade forever looking for a tank.
Right.
That's exactly what it was. I would log in and I would know it would take an hour to 2 hours to try and find a tank or find a healer.
Right.
And it just wasn't
I played
worth
exclusively tanks and heals at the time, so I was popular.
Right, exactly. I mean, so in a way, it builds community through frustration, really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. And I think, like I keep harping on about, it being cross-realm is going to make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, definitely.
It won't be too bad.
Well, I got to say one thing, too, just in regards to cross-realm. One thing that I found very interesting is, they're doing these connected servers, which in a way is kind of like server merges, in a way. Mm-hmm. But what's kind of interesting is Airy Peak, right? The server that we're on, its majority is Alliance. So I was talking to Petunia, Rogue and Asparagus Initiative.
Yeah.
And I was in the Alliance auction house, and those Dark Moon Fair trinkets, the relics, they were like...
The relic person.
Relic of Zuen and all this other stuff. There were like 30 or 40 on the auction house. It was full of Dark Moon cards and everything. Nice. So he logged on to his Horde character to check the other side. There wasn't a single relic on the AH anywhere. And there were 2 cards, and that was it on the entire auction house. So the only thing that I'm kind of looking forward to with this connected servers and the rebalancing is because of this problem. With these connected servers, there can be more Horde. There's a bigger balance between Horde and Alliance. So it's not just Alliance, or on other servers, just Horde.
Right. Well, let's maybe dive into a little bit more on flex rating, because that is actually testing right now. Right this second. It's being tested. So they have opened up a wing, right, Liv? Is it just like one wing that they have open up right
as
now?
far as I understand it, they've opened up. I haven't actually looked at the testing that's been done this weekend because I've been quite busy, but I believe it's one wing, like maybe the third wing, I want to say, but I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, that sounds right. Second or third wing. And so now you can actually go through and try it out on the PTR if you want to. And the interesting thing here is that flex mode bosses have all of the same mechanics as the normal mode versions, but they're just tuned to be more forgiving. That's what they say. They've been tuned to be more forgiving, quote unquote, air quotes, and scale and health and damage and all that kind of stuff. So this sounds pretty good. Have any of you guys tried it on the PTR? Liv, did you say that you did?
Yeah, I did. Sorry, I'm muting myself because my dogs are sort of having a field day. There's obviously people walking.
That's
because it's daytime. I'm not used to this sort of administrative errors at 4 a.m.
Right, exactly.
So I'm muting. My apologies, guys, for the dogs, which now are barking again.
No problem.
There you go. But yeah, I tried this. I went on and I did Immersius and Shah of Pride. I've done so much raid testing. I can't remember which bosses it was. But I did the first wing, basically. And we managed to kill Immersius with 2 people offline because they couldn't get on in time. But it was a pre-made group of friends and decent, we all know it's a bunch of WoW Insider people. So we kind of know that most of us are okay. And we went on and it was the gear level, like you felt the gear level, like the fights took a while. But it was like if you messed up a mechanic, it wasn't that bad.
Sure.
It was like, because we've obviously as well, like we've been testing them all on normal mode too.
Right.
Because we write articles about them, and we it's our job to know this stuff.
Right.
So we go in and do it. And it was certainly a bunch easier than the normal. Like if you messed up on the normal mode, you were going to be like reduced to no health. And as a healer, it's just like playing whack-a-mole with the big heals where people are messing up.
Right.
But sorry about the dog again.
No problem.
But it's just like, I'm going to go and yell at them in a second. It's just like it's much easier. It's much easier. It's like it's kind of like the difference between normal scenarios and heroic scenarios.
Gotcha.
Like if normal raiding is like a heroic scenario where if you stand in something, you should really move. Like you should have by the time you said I should move, you should have moved.
Right.
And the normal scenarios are like, oh, am I standing in something? I thought I saw a purple number. Wait, I am. I should move.
Right.
It's kind of like that different.
Right. Gotcha.
So I think, that was my impression of it anyhow. But you did feel the gear level for your DPS and your sort of the numbers flashing up on your screen.
Cool.
Interesting.
Now, Colt, how does this look to you on paper as far as kind of what they've come up with for flex rating?
I think this is a great thing as far as if all the mechanics are there. So it's normal mechanics. It just sounds like the poo doesn't hurt as much.
Right.
Essentially.
Right.
So you can stand in the poo a little bit and it doesn't hurt as much. Now, the reason I think that this is okay is because in a normal mode raid team, this is like a raid team, right? So you've got your team, your Tuesday nights from this time to this time, we're raiding. So you're all together, you're in your mumble, you're doing your thing. Flex mode is kind of like pugging in a way. It's a team, but it's kind of a pug type environment, especially if you use like open raid and all that. So I like it that it's a little bit more forgiving because it's not like a set raid team. You know what I mean? Or you might have your raid team, but then 3 extra people that, could come along who have never done these fights before. And I think that's a good thing because, you explain the fight, new people come in, but if they do stand in the poo, it's going to be okay. Sure. You know what I mean? So I think I like it that it's a little bit more forgiving because flex rating in its core is a bit more puggable than obviously than a normal raid.
Right. And I really like this for the fact that they are keeping the mechanics from normal and putting it into flex raid. This is really important, I think. And I'm so glad that they did it this way and they didn't do an LFR version or like a bolstered LFR version where some of the mechanics are missing because of this. Mm-hmm. This means that those teams that have not progressed quite as far in like Throne of Thunder, let's say you have a 10-man team and you're probably, 5 or 6 bosses in right now. So you've been at it for a while and you've been kind of stuck on a few bosses like Horadon, which was horrible for 10-mans.
Yeah.
It was just not good.
Yeah, it was rough.
But you can go into flex mode and train yourself essentially in a way that you can overcome the boss in normal mode, which is, I think, really a smart thing because that means it's actual practice for when you go to normal mode. And, things will hit harder. Things will have more health. That's fine. You have the practice. You kind of know what's going to be happening before it happens. And you've really kind of experienced the whole fight in normal already through flex. And because it's a separate lockout and because it's also done in wings, this means it's a lot more flexible for those raid teams that need a little bit of practice.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's a good way to gel. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. No, I was going to say it's also nice that, because there was this discussion, Ghostcrawler tweeted about it a fair while back, about how they weren't sure that they'd made the correct decision with the way that they'd altered the 10-man, 25-man stuff since Rat. Where if you remember, like 10-man was kind of this is easier. Like you were saying earlier, Colt, the gear was lesser from 10-man. And that was kind of 10 normal was kind of aimed at people who were more of a friends and family kind of feel.
Right.
And they were sort of like this, that made me think, and I think we talked about it on Legendary, that they were thinking about nerfing normal back to that and sort of reinstating that system. And I'm really glad that rather than doing that, they went with this. Like, I'm not saying that those were 2 binary options. These were the things that they could have done. Right. But like, given if that was the choice that they were making, I'm really glad they went with this because I like how 10 normal is. Like, it's challenging.
Yeah.
It's, you feel it when you get better gear and your DPS improves and your healing throughput improves. And I would have been really sad if they'd gone back to the Wrath option, but they've snuck another difficulty in there. And I think it's great. I'm happy about that, and it's good. It's a good thing in my book.
Yeah, it was really funny. We didn't even have the term Friends and Family Guild before Ian Hazzikostas went on before the 5.3 stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, we just never really took care of those guys." And then like the next week they announced Flex Rating, and I was like, "Ian, why didn't you tell me about this before? We could have talked for an hour just on this."
Lips are sealed.
What a jerk.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it that the mechanics are the same in LFR. An example is Elegon, the old sparkle dragon, right?
Yeah.
When you get in that field, you become Starman, right?
Yep.
Now, in normal, you start taking damage, you know, when you're Starman. You know what I mean? It starts ticking. So you need to get out of the star field, reset your stacks, and then get back in. But in LFR, there's no penalty. You can be Starman for the entire fight, you know? So I like that in this going forward, if it were to be Elegon, you would still take that damage, just not as much. You still are in the mechanics of the fight. There's something that's a great thing about a raid team is when it is difficult, it is a challenge, and you overcome it. You know what I mean? When you're in the mechanics, and this is something that you've done together as a team, and you've killed this boss, and it's down to 2% health, 1% health, and then boom, it's dead, and everybody cheers. Like, that's the great thing about raiding.
Right.
And that's what I kind of dig about this Flex, is I think it's going to provide more opportunities for that kind of thing. So
now the Elegon boss, the biggest part of the Elegon boss is always to the graphics. Your graphics settings are probably the biggest restrictor on that one. I don't know about anything else, but when your frames per second goes down to like 0.5.
There is that.
There is that.
That was
I don't know. There's going to be some fights which I've tested on the PTR, which are a little bit like as well.
Oh, really?
Going to be some interesting ones. There's this one, and are you guys cool with talking about?
Yeah, we can talk about whatever we want.
I don't want to sort of ruin your spoiler policy.
No.
But for example, the Corcoran Dark Shaman fight.
Yeah.
Which is there's the first one once you get to actual Orgrimmar. And I know that this has happened before, but I laughed and laughed because there's an ability that knocks you up. So take a protection paladin, guys.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
There's this fight is just stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
The floor is coated in stuff, and there's tornadoes and storm clouds and stuff on the floor, and ads and more ads and ads in lines and ads in groups and ads in circles, and it's just, and meteors fall from the sky, and it's just like wow. Like I had to turn, like, I don't have an amazing computer. Like I had to turn everything right down. Like everything was on low, and I was getting my sort of 29 I think frames with everything on low, and it's just like people who have computers that are inferior. Mine is like an average, I guess. Like I have 16 gig of RAM and an i7, like, but not a good i7, like one of the bad i7s.
Sure,
it's a laptop because I raid on a laptop. So it's like, these people who don't have as good a computer as that are going to really struggle with this fight.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but you've proven, Olivia, that WoW can run on a Commodore 64, so that's great.
Which is awesome.
Run on a toaster. WoW can run on a toaster.
That's right.
Well, all right. We should probably move it along here because we're running long already. And we're going to get to a little discussion with Liv. As long as we got her here, we're going to talk a little bit of PvP, especially for raiders. I think that PvP is actually a really good thing, and I know, Liv, you love PvP, so we should just get into it, but I have a little sounder for you. Here we go. You down with PvP? Yeah, you know me. You down with PvP? Yeah, you know me. You down with PvP? Yeah, you know me. Who's down with PvP? There we go. So
I love it.
A little bit for you. So so let's talk a little bit about PvP. Yeah, you know me. There you go. All right. So what are you playing? What are you playing as far as specs, battlegrounds versus arenas? What are you playing?
What am I playing? My PvP time is spent principally in arenas. I do mostly arenas. Okay. I pug arenas. I have arena teams. Arenas are a lot easier to keep when you're really busy than a rated battlegrounds. Well, like, I have a sort of pool of people that I do arenas with.
Sure. And that's just because rated battlegrounds take a lot more people.
It's 10 people.
Right.
It's as simple as that. And then I'm not, like, at the moment, we're just sort of doing it for the points cap and just for fun and to try out new comps. So, like, not shooting for rating because I work a lot.
Sure. Sure.
So I'm busy.
Right.
But yeah, so I mostly play, I principally heal. I have a restoration. I have a lot of restoration shaman. The one that I just ding 90 on the US level would be my 6th.
6? Jeez.
6
crazy.
restoration shaman. I also have a discipline stroke shadow priest, which I do both discipline and shadow on. I do a little bit of elemental. When I do random battlegrounds, I love the elemental and the shadow. I also have a fire mage that I leveled back in, I don't even know which expansion it was, let's say Wrath, because I was fed up of people asking me to heal all the time. I have a ret paladin that's for PvP when I've had a couple of drinks. And I have, because paladin PvP is just for like smashing into walls. It's just like take stuff and smash it into stuff. It's just like, yep. But yeah, that's about it. I have my little baby feral, and I have a hunter that is level 70 for 70 arenas right now.
Wow.
And that's fun.
You're all over the place.
Jeez. I am.
Wow.
I mean, it's because I've been doing this for a while, and like the shaman is always going to be my baby. That's always going to be my number one thing. I think that's the one I'm best at. But the priest, man, I love the priest right now. I'm really, really enjoying priesting in the arenas. And shadow in battlegrounds is just like a wrecking ball.
Right. I bet. And it sounds like it's pretty. So why are you doing all of this PvP? What is about PvP that you really enjoy?
I think part of it is it's particularly arenas are very sort of fast paced. Like you're reacting. Like, I mean, I don't mean to for a second to say that raiding isn't fast paced, but
sure,
it's perhaps more predictable. Raiding is perhaps more of a predictable thing.
Yes, that's true.
Like,
I would say
it's the difficult. Like I really hate it when people say that PvP is hard and PvE is easy. I always want to sort of like take these people and smack them about a bit and say, no, they are differently difficult. They are difficult, but in very different ways.
Sure. Yes. But saying that raiding is really random and unpredictable is not correct.
Precisely. Indeed. Like
it's all on timers.
Yeah. The difficulty in raiding comes from you have to be an encyclopedia.
Right.
You have to be an encyclopedia of knowledge in order to raid. Like I go into LFR sometimes and I get to Primordius and I'm like, wait, what am I meant to do with this guy again? Like you have to have a very broad knowledge to raid. And like if you think about the number of bosses that are current in the game right now, like you've got Mogishan, like the first tier plus Throne of Thunder, and then 5. Like if you actually think about the number of fights there, and in order to be a competent PvEer, you have to know every single one of those fights well enough to perform it. Let alone all the dungeons, let alone all the heroic scenarios.
Right.
It's a very broad knowledge, whereas PvP is a very narrow, but perhaps a deeper knowledge. So you need to know 11 classes well enough to counter them. The PvP is like a question and answer session to me. And this is kind of what I like about it as well. It's like it's like chess. You're trying to get your thinking a little bit ahead of that next guy. So it's like, you're standing behind a pillar, you're healing your mage over there, and there's a hunter over there, and he's killing your mage. Then he moves slightly to the left, so he's in line of sight of you. You know that he's about to fling a scatter on you, and then once he's done that, he's going to drop a trap. So you try to shadow word death the scatter as it flies, so when it lands, it's going to damage him, then damage you to break the scatter. He's going to put a trap down. If he hits you with the scatter, he's going to throw a trap. So you need to get your mage to blink back, soak the trap, and you can dispel it.
What?
Wow.
What?
Wow.
Holy
Look
cow.
at you.
That's how you PvP. That's what I mean. It's like chess. It's like keeping your thinking ahead of their thinking.
Right.
And it's it's really fun to do that kind of mental mechanic for me.
I think you lost Coltrane.
My brain hurts.
Well, okay, here's another fun example for people might not know that you can do this.
All right.
Like you have, say for example, you're playing a DK. And you have an ability called Dark Simulacrum, which allows you to steal a spell, the most recently used spell that has a mana cost. So here's Coltrane on his mage in a battleground. He's sending out some frosty stuff all over the place. And a DK, he says that he sees a DK running towards him. And he's like, I know what's going to happen here. The DK is going to wait till I blink, and then he's going to grip me. And then I'll be stuck. Oh my God, I'll be stuck.
Right.
So Coltrane's like, oh no, I'm going to run away from him, wait for him to grip me, and then I'm going to blink.
Right.
You're trying to like make him do the wrong thing. But here's the fun tip. So you're that DK. You're trying to kill Coltrane.
Yeah.
And you do that. You wait for him. He's running away from you, and you think, oh God, he's running. It's so tiresome. I'm gonna grip him. and then Coltrane's, aha! You gripped me, but my blink is off cooldown. Boom, gone. Fuck it, DK.
Yeah.
But that DK gripped you and then used Dark Simulacrum. And I've done this on my DK. It feels so good. So you just blink, and then the DK blinks off.
Right.
Whoa!
DK blinks right at it. It's like, oh man. Oh snap. That
I
just
gotta
happened.
admit, that sounds amazing. I might have to give this a go. That sounds great. Holy, I mean, I'm completely confused. I mean,
Right.
but my goodness. But I can understand that. That sounds incredible.
So
And it's this mental acrobatics. And someone just said in chat room, being an alcoholic helps you PvP. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
and one of the things that I'm having a huge amount of problem dealing with at the moment is monks, because I don't have one. I've never really played one. I never really got involved with monks. I was just like, I kind of got like, I hated the Panda Start Zone with a burning passion.
Wow.
And so I never really like got through that. Like I did it once and I was like, I'm never doing that again. And then I didn't like the monk and I wanted another warrior. So I deleted the monk to make a warrior.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, and so I haven't got a monk. So I'm sort of struggling at the moment with monks because I'm just like, I know how to do that.
Right.
So it's a lot of that.
But so basically what it is it's learning not necessarily all the spells, but like all the bigger cooldowns and stuff like that as far as
like exactly. So like Ring of Peace is a ring of, oh my God, would you nerf that already, Blizzard? Is something which, you see that on monks. It's like this bubble that follows them around and silences you if you cast into it and like disarms you if you get inside it, and it's so annoying.
Right.
And yeah, stuff like that. So you just need to know, like you need to know what the class's sort of sequences of combat are. And it's kind of it's a question and answer. Mm-hmm. So like what we were talking about with the blink and the death grip.
Right.
So, if they do this, I'll do that. So I'm going to do that to try and make them do this so I can then beat them with this thing.
Gotcha.
That is awesome.
Gotcha.
I'm jacked up, man. That's great.
PvP.
That's cool.
That's a very long answer to why I really like PvP.
Hey, I'll take it. Definitely. Now, okay. So how has PvP stacked up for Miss of Pandaria as opposed to other expansions? In your opinion?
I have to say, I haven't been that blown away with PvP in Mists compared to Cataclysm. I'm trying to be diplomatic.
Why do you think that is?
I think there's been a lot of change. There's been an awful lot of change, and it's not all been good. I mean, so we started off the expansion with the first season of the expansion where, we had this massive Stampede issue.
Oh, yeah. That was awesome.
Remember that?
Yeah, because I play Hunter. Yeah.
You hit your camo, and then you hit 3 buttons and you won.
Right.
And that was a problem.
Yeah,
that was an issue.
If you don't win in 5 seconds as a hunter, at least at the beginning of the expansion, if you didn't win in 5 seconds, then you had to wait like 3 or 4 minutes for all your cooldowns to come back.
To be back up, we had to like stealth.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's that. Like there were big problematic, and warriors were insane early on as well.
Right.
There were big balance issues, and the balance issues have they've never really quite managed to fix the balance issues. Like the basics of PvP are making sure that balance is a thing, and making sure that CC isn't too insane and that burst isn't too insane. Because the way I look at PvP, and I see my mission in PvP is to get people started in PvP, is to get people who are like, oh, I don't know that I want to get into PvP. And if they go straight in to arenas and just get flattened every time they try, that's not an experience that's going to make people come back.
Are you serious that that's going to... No, I'm totally with you. Yeah, totally.
It's not going to happen to everybody.
Right.
Sure, no, absolutely not. And I think that one of the things that's a real positive for PvP this expansion, although there are things I would change about it, which you and I have discussed several times on Legendary Pack, is PvE gear usefulness in PvP with the base resilience.
Right.
I think in its essence, the notion is a really good one because, although I have so many objections to how it's been executed, but the basic idea that you can take PvE gear into PvP and not be completely hopeless is a really good one. Because surprise, surprise, guys, there's a lot more people PvEing than there are PvPing. And surprise, surprise, guys.
We know this.
The more people you have PvPing, the better PvP will get.
Yes.
Right.
I will
that.
agree with that too. Yeah.
But yeah, and I think the problem that they're facing was that PvP at the end of Cataclysm, with a few notable issues, such as Dragonwrath Taragosis Rest, Fangs of the Father, Vial of Shadows, and the Cunning of the Cruel, so certain PvE items were problematic in PvP. They should actually, in retrospect, have just made them ineffective, made the procs ineffective. Like, and that would have taken them out of the equation.
Sure.
And then that would have been, Cataclysm PvP at that point would have been pretty close, probably the best it's been since I started. I didn't play in vanilla. So they had a hard act to follow with Mists of Pandaria. Sure. And they haven't lived up to it at all, unfortunately, in my opinion.
Right.
But there's been a lot of good changes. So, around about.
And they're planning on more changes for 5.4, right? I mean,
that is correct, yeah.
What do we got coming up for 5.4 that people might be interested in?
Well, obviously the PvP gear versus PvE gear is getting some slight adjustment where your conquest gear, and I know, and this is one of the big things that they're doing wrong, is there's too many changes and the seasons are too long and you're getting big changes happening mid-season, which is just like, say, for example, you got halfway through a raid tier and they were like, oh no, we changed how you earn Valor. And you're just like, stop that. So they've got to stop doing that. But anyhow, that aside, they're making some changes which mean that your conquest gear will always be notably superior to anything else in arenas, which is a good thing, in my opinion.
Yes.
Whether they're making the change that honor gear is better than PvE gear, we'll see how that goes. But the big thing is cross-realm arenas.
Yeah.
My hands are red raw from baking Brian Helinka a million cookies because I said to him that if it was that they were bringing in, I would.
Right. I remember that.
But yeah, they're bringing in cross-realm arenas and removing arena teams. And one is a consequence of the other. So arena teams basically had to go because they needed rating to be attached to you personally. So say the three of us are in a 3v3 team at the moment. We have a rating which is attached to our team, which is used to match our team against other teams.
Sure.
Whereas in order for that to be possible cross-realm, they had to take that rating away from teams and put it on a person. Right. Now I have a rating, Pat has a rating, Colt has a rating, and then we go across different servers and we can PvP to our heart's content with different people.
Which is kind of cool. I mean, just being able to be that flexible is so nice for a lot of different people, as far as being able to play some with your friends or and just with different teams in general. So
definitely. I mean, it's not cross-faction, but it means I only have to run 2 shaman instead of 6. Well,
right. Exactly.
I don't have to have the 2 factions on each of the 2 big. I don't have to do that anymore. So it's nice. It's a good thing for me, and it means that I can just be like, oh right, this better geared shaman can now be the one shaman to rule them all.
Nice.
And they could carry on with it like that.
That's good.
And there's also the tie break or the match ender, as they've preferred to call it.
Yeah,
that's change.
That's actually kind of cool. The tiebreak thing is pretty weird though, right? I mean, it's basically it's looking at people's health over the course of the match, and then saying, okay, well, if it's a tie, then we're gonna give it to the team that kept their health up the most, right?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
So the guy with the lowest health is shunned out of the group.
Dave the Warlock is going to get owned. Yeah, so it's basically, I should mention that the teams are going, like arena teams. So arena teams will be literally departed. All you have to do is make a group.
Right.
So if 2v2 need a party of 2, 3v3 party of 3, and predictably 5v5 party of 5. And I'm really sad about that. I'm so happy about cross-realm arenas, but I have like a genuine sad feeling in my chest every time I think about the disappearance of teams.
Right, because you get to name your team, right? You got your little logo and everything, right?
Yeah,
isn't that great?
You're in a team, and that means something. Like it's your team. Go team! I'm gonna really miss that.
Right. I think my my 3v3 team was called "We're Gonna Die Early." I think that's what it was. I'm pretty sure.
That's confidence. That's good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We were very confident that we were going to die very early in the match.
Exactly. But yeah. But anyway, so moving on to the tiebreak thing, exactly that. So it's numerical rather than percentage, which is an interesting choice given how some classes have much larger health pools than others. I was expecting them to shoot for percentage, but things are roundabouts. And
yeah,
so
and who knows, that still could change though, right? I mean, they could still come back and say, "No, we'll do percentage. That's fine."
Yeah, absolutely. They could definitely do that. And so the people who have either a player dead, so obviously negative health is the lowest health you can get to.
Right.
So players die, and then if you have, like, for example, we've all done it, discipline priests out there, we've all done it, where you turtle, and because you've got a doc pass and a healer, they can't kill you. We've all done it, and that's what they're trying to prevent with this. So in that situation, the team with 2 left would get this buff, which increases your, like, what did we see on Legendary?
It was like we were seeing like these crits for like 1 million.
Yeah, it was
damage.
Like 971,000 damage.
Yeah,
it's like it's
exactly.
Boom! Oh,
boom!
Just crush you.
Arena explosion. Exactly, it was great. Yeah, so you get this buff as long as you've got, like, if your team is the team which has not gone lower. So say that you get someone in the other. So say it's us 3. And Pat hits this guy and it's like, oh, and he's really nearly dead. But he's got 10k health left, and the other team's healer heals him back up again. And like, we're like, right, okay, so 10k, as long as, and I'm like healing Pat and Coltrane, and they're like, right, as long as they don't drop below 10k at any point, we're gonna win this.
Right.
Because none of us get below 10k, we're gonna win. And then Coltrane's gonna get the buff, he's gonna be like, pow, ice lance, and then they're gonna all die.
Yeah, right. I love these stories with me in PvP. This is fantastic
because it's going to be so much better than the actual reality of it, right?
I mean, it's complete fiction, and that's what I love about it.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
So let's kind of move this along into maybe some players, some raiders, or some guys that are normally doing just PvE content. Let's try to move them into PvP. Because I think PvP is one of the greatest ways to find all of your buttons, a use for all of your buttons. You will find exactly how to use those and when. And that only helps in raiding, really.
Exactly. Like, it's kind of like goes back to what we were chatting about earlier, how raiding is a very broad knowledge.
Yep.
But PvP is a very in-depth knowledge of less stuff. So, like, for example, Shaman, and I talk about Shaman because it's the one I know best. Like, I know a bunch of Shaman in PvE, like, who I've met through pugging stuff, who are like, what's this debuff that keeps popping up on my raid frame? I'm like, oh, that's grounding totem. I'm like, what does that do? Like, oh.
Well, let me tell you.
It's a totem that grounds a spell. And, like, in PvP, it's, like, vital.
Right.
It's like you yeah, and I'm going to sort of, I don't normally say things like this. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if you are a PvP shaman and you don't use grounding totem, you're probably not doing it right. You know, learn to use grounding totem. Right. And the same applies to capacitor totem, which is another one which people don't use much in PvE. It's a stun totem. So it's a totem that sits there and goes for a while and then explodes and stuns everything in an AoE zone. So, for example, when we were doing Heart of Fear, the Klaxi, what are they called? The swarms of Klaxi before the first boss.
Oh, yeah.
That just swoop down and own your entire raid.
Right.
Like, we had 2 shaman in our group, and I would drop one capacitor totem, which would blow them up, and then they'd all be stunned, and they'd be like, right, other shaman, come in here and drop your capacitor totem. And I'm like, what now? Like, I have a what? Like, yeah.
Right.
And like, it makes you do things like, you know, you learn to interrupt. You learn to use all of your abilities, which you probably didn't otherwise think of. It improves your reactions as well. Like, if I had the way I have my UI set up is I have obviously my cast bar at the bottom, and then sort of like if you turn that over my character and like the equal distance above the character, I have target cast bar because it's really important.
Right.
And above that, I have the focus cast bar, and just things like it teaches you to look for that interrupt. Because it's vital in PvP, and it's not like PvP isn't difficult. It's just different. Like, you have to react differently, and you do suddenly find out what the rest of your spellbook is for in PvP. Right. And that can only, like you say, that can only be a positive thing for your PvE.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the PvP though for raiders or people that are in PvE content can be a little intimidating for some.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have any advice for these folks at all, or as far as how to get over that?
Absolutely. Like, go with friends. If you can, go with friends. I think that's probably one of the biggest things you can do to make it fun. And that's really important. Another thing is adjusting your mental reaction to dying. Like in PvE, dying is a failure. Like, you know, you wiped. You lost that fight against that boss. So, you know, that's it's kind of a sort of finite failed here thing. PvE, think of it as a timeout. Because guess what? There's a reason why there's a deaths column on the Battleground scorecard. You know? It's not just you who's dying. There's a reason why there's an achievement called Wrecking Ball for getting 10 killing blows without dying in a single battleground. You know, you will die, but don't think of it as a failure. Obviously in Arena it's a little different. But there is, you know, try and look at it, try and take a step away from the, oh, I've died, so I have failed mentality that PvE brings. And just, you know, the problem with PvP is a lot of the community are extremely elitist. And there's these people who are out there going, oh, it's so hard. PvP is incredible and I am amazing. And you PvEers will never be able to do it. It's completely rubbish. It's complete nonsense. If you're good at your class, and that's another thing I'd say, something that people ask me a lot is like, oh, hey, Liv, I'm going to start PvEing. What class should I roll? No, play the one you know best already. Because you're not going to go into a battleground on a brand new class and be good at it, surprisingly. But if Colt takes a mage and Pat takes his hunter, then you guys will be in there. You'll already know what most of your buttons do. Like, you know, you'll have that knowledge already, and you'll be able to then learn how to PvP without also trying to learn how to hunter and how to mage at the same time. And that's...
We'll have some of that muscle memory already.
Precisely, so you'll know, like, you won't be there going, wait, which one's the instant cast? What did I bind that to eye? Eye slaps? You know? You'll know that stuff already. Like, you'll know how to, you'll know that if sort of melee comes running up to you, like, this is what I need to do. I need to Frost Nova right now so I can get away without using my blink. And like, you'll already know where that is. You'll already know how to do that.
Because I don't want it to be Dark Simulacrum from the DK. I'm just going to run. I'm not going to blink. You see? I'm learning.
You're going to use your Blazing Speed, which you stacked into instead of Pom, because it's better for PvP. But, you know, there's all this sort of, like, little things you could... what I always tell people to do when they're starting to PvP to make an easier experience is do Battlegrounds first. Don't step straight into Arena. Go with friends, if possible. Stay with a group. Don't be on your own, because a rogue will kill you and it'll drive you nuts. Stay with a group. Don't blindly run into the enemy, into fighting situations. Take a step back, look at what's going on, and then go in. Steal a spec from the internet. There are people on the internet who are good at PvP. Follow their advice when it comes to your spec, reforging, gemming, and enchanting. Fine.
Any website you can recommend?
Arena Junkies is good. In fact, but for stealing specs and things, just go onto the Blizzard community site, go onto the PvP section and look at the top-rated people. Find the top-rated person who plays your spec. Like, you can sort. Go onto that site. Go onto the PvP section. So Battle.net/WoW. Go onto the PvP section. Go to rated battleground rankings. Once you're in there, you can sort by class and spec. So say you're playing a Restoration Shaman, you go and say, right, I want to see all the Restoration Shaman. They'll be ranked according to their rating. I think you can do this for Arena since they redesigned it as well, so up to you. Look at several, because the first one you look at might have some insane spec that won't work. And look at several and try and see, like, the top 5. If they've all got the same talents, glyphs, and enchanting strategy, steal it. There's no shame in that. Do that. Because they probably know how to PvP better than you do.
Do that for rating, too. Why not? I mean, you might as well. I mean, take all the advice that you can from those players that are doing content beyond what you're doing. And just steal it. Absolutely.
Oh, I have a quick question for you, Olivia. So all this talk about PvP, I gotta admit, it's getting me charged up. Especially these epic stories of Coltrane blinking. I mean, my goodness, that sounds amazing.
Wait, hold on a sec. It's just you running away. It's just that's all it is.
That's right, but with purpose now. But I'm always running away. But my question is also as far as gearing, like how much PvP gear should I get and what type of gear should I get before I start going into these battlegrounds, or should I just go in right away? What do you recommend? Like, should I do some craftable PvP stuff, some Justice Point
definitely
PvP?
Don't do that.
Not at this point.
Definitely don't do that. Definitely don't use the crafted gear, because honor gear is really, really easy to get at the moment. One of the things which I complain fairly constantly about is how your LFR gear even is probably about as good as honor gear in battlegrounds. In arenas, it's a little bit different because of the nature of the damage you need to be putting out.
Sure.
But your PvE gear at the moment is fine. And your honor gear is not going to be huge upgrades. Definitely the PvP power is going to help, but procs from trinkets, set bonuses, they will kind of offset that. And more gem slots. You're going to have a ton more gem slots.
Sure.
That sort of thing is going to kind of balance out the PvP power that you're getting on the honor gear. However, you should do your best, like always try and replace it and just sort of see how you go. And this is going to be different for different classes as well. It's like if you play a class that's very focused on percentage weapon damage for abilities such as a warrior or a rogue, then, and I believe it's a hunter's like that as well, Pat, where it's a percentage weapon damage thing.
I believe so. I don't look at tooltips too much. I just know how to melt face.
He's not going to know that.
Cool, but yeah, for classes like that, then maybe the PvE weapons downscaled are better than the PvP weapons. I mean, to be completely honest, at that initial starting stage, I wouldn't worry about gear. Aim to get the conquest gear. That's what you really need. And I understand that in patch 5.4, they're massively increasing the conquest you earn from normal battlegrounds. So that's definitely something to look at. I mean, I would say do battlegrounds in your PvE gear. You're going to collect a ton of honor. Right. And if you've got Justice Point sitting around and you don't have anything specific you're looking to buy with those, then convert them. Yeah. Convert them to honor, because the gear you're getting from that is better anyhow.
Right.
Cool. Take that honor gear, and you'll be able to tell yourself whether you're going in full PvE gear and feeling that you're doing more damage, or in honor gear.
Right.
And it's very easy to get. But once you're sort of feeling good and confident in battlegrounds, that's the time to go into the arenas. And it's a really unfortunate consequence of the way the matchmaking system works. Unless you're very good, and you guys, you may well be, and you're going to lose. Unfortunately, you're going to start off losing because you need to drop rating to get down to a point where you can start winning. And I wish it worked differently to this. I really do.
Right.
But unfortunately, that is how it works. So you're going to lose a bit, but you'll get to a point and you'll start winning and you'll start earning conquest points. And the conquest gear is better than PvE gear.
Sure.
That's great.
That's cool. That's cool.
And start with PvE gear. There's nothing preventing you from doing that anymore.
Right.
Get him.
Right. I think that, like what you said, going with friends, that's the best way to do all this stuff. It doesn't matter whether it's raiding or whether it's PvP or anything. Anytime you group up with people, it's a win. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many times you die.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there we go.
Yeah. And go into your spell book and pull everything you don't already use onto some bars.
Yeah.
Because God knows you might need it.
Yeah. Oh man. And for some classes like shaman, let's pronounce it correctly. But for some of those classes and specs, there are a lot of buttons. There are a lot. So
if you include totems as cooldowns, which I suppose they technically are because most of them have a cooldown, 22 cooldowns to keep an eye on.
That was when I was leveling up my shaman this morning before the show. I was like, wow, there are a lot of cooldowns, and I need to figure out how many bars those need. So yeah, it's going to be
this many for all your abilities and cooldowns. If you put some on tertiary like you have some for like bind elemental, which you'll almost never use.
Right.
Pop that on a fifth bar, you can get all of them on 4 bars.
Well,
at capacity,
and the hunters,
including a button for Healthstone, but not a button for Symbiosis.
Right, and that's and that's the same for hunters as well. Is that there are just a lot of buttons that you can hit, and so it's important to know when to hit those. And I think PvP is a great way to find out. So there. So thank you very much for talking to us a little bit about PvP. And I'm going to play the sounder again because I just like it. You're down with PvP. Yeah, you know me. You're down with PvP. Yeah, you know me. You're down with PvP. Yeah, you know me. Who's down with PvP? That's right. right. Let's get into some mail here and get out of here.
We've got mail.
We do. And if you have a question about anything for us about rating or PvP or anything else, just let us know. We'll try to answer it on the show. You can always email us at converttораid@gmail.com, or you can call our raid line, 612-787-RAID, or you can join us during one of the live shows. Try to get our attention with a PM, and we'll see if we can get to it. Colt, let's jump down to the second one, the one in red.
Sure. This is from Nurion from Runs with Scissors on Draenor.
Right.
Not very safe.
No.
I have a theory and a question for you.
Yeah.
After watching the Xiao Hao?
Yeah, Xiao Hao. It's
Xiao Hao series on
little
YouTube.
animated series that they're
by
doing.
Blizzard.
Yeah, by Blizzard.
Awesome, by the way.
Yeah, it's cool.
I believe I know what the next expansion is going to be. I believe the next expansion will be traveling back in time to the time of the Sundering. I also believe that this will be the name of the new expansion pack, The Sundering. What do you guys think? I also have another question. All the podcasts I listen to seem to think that the next playable race will be Naga. I believe there is a different possibility. Why hasn't anyone thought of Murlocs being the next playable race? I know I would totally be down with playing a Warlock. What do you guys think? Thanks as always. You guys rock.
Okay, so let's take the first question first about The Sundering as being the next expansion. Liv, what do you think about The Sundering being a possibility for the next expansion?
I guess. I don't know. I am not that hot on the lore side of things. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
Right.
So the Sundering, if I understand correctly, was the bit where all the continents were broken up.
Right. Exactly.
Or something.
Exactly. This is.
I mean,
we go back basically 10,000 years. Kind of like the end of the Cataclysm, the 5-man, where you go back to the Well of Eternity and kind of that whole thing.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they'd just be repeating Cataclysm. I don't know. That doesn't seem to me like that's something they're going to do. I kind of feel like we're in a really, like with the sort of, God knows what's going to be the outcome of this expansion, like with the final outcome of this.
Right.
But I kind of feel like there's a potential that we're going to be in this sort of uneasy state right now. And I'm kind of hoping that they stop using the Caverns of Freaking Time quite so liberally in their plots, to be completely honest. Because they're just like, well...
Let's go back in time!
Caverns of Time!
Let's go back in time!
Put those in. Wow, that's saved our bacon on so many occasions. It's just like, stop.
Right.
Let's add another entrant. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you didn't spot that one earlier, did you? Because it was hidden behind a secret boulder.
Right.
And it's just like, someone, Jessica Chaos says timey-wimey nonsense. And yeah, Jessica, I agree. Stop it, Blizzard. Stop it with that.
This is not the Doctor Who MMO.
Exactly.
This is not.
Gotta get back in time.
So, Colt, what do you think about The Sundering being the next expansion, maybe?
Well, it's interesting that it's different than the norm. I think everyone thinks it's going to be the Emerald Dream.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think that's might.
Burning
You don't think
Legion.
so? The Burning Legion, because now too, with all this phasing technology, they could do like, you're in the dream, you're out of the dream, you're in the dream. You know, you could do all this different kind of stuff. And the Burning Legion,
Right.
I think everyone thinks, Burning Legion's on their way back. There was a lot of people thought a big hint was in the Wrathion Legendary Quest, which Olivia, you're about to start, actually. Which there's in the first little bit of the quest, he kind of shows these like Burning Legion green like fire guys, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Burning Legion!" Like, so they think that might be where we're headed. So I do like this idea because it's different, but you're right with the Caverns of Time. Like we've put on our time travel jetpacks. I don't know how many times.
Right.
I think we're cool where we are. So I'm thinking still Emerald Dream or something like that.
And by the way, those guys that don't join the live show or are not watching the video of this later, that look was priceless, Liv. It was just priceless. When Colt said that you were just starting the quest line, your face was just, it was amazing. It was just amazing.
So excited about starting the quest line.
Right. Now, okay, so moving on to the second question. One of the misconceptions was that all the podcasts were thinking that the next playable race was going to be Naga. That was not necessarily the case. And I'm not saying that I'm listening to there are a lot of WoW podcasts out there. So you cannot listen to them all in the amount of time that there is available in 1 week. Anyway, one of the things that came out was from a Chinese website, right? And they basically said that Ghostcrawler said that the Naga was going to be the next playable race, and that was not true. And so G Street, Ghostcrawler, he put out a little tweet about it. And, of course, anytime he tweets anything, we have to talk about it for at least 5 minutes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
And what was the biggest problem, Liv, with Naga being the next playable race?
Well, Pat, it's funny you should ask that, because one of the big problems with Naga as a playable race is their lack of feet.
Right. So it
makes it much harder for them to wear shoes and trousers.
Right. Right.
Yes, that's one of the major impediments.
It would
have feet.
It would be more like an armor sleeve. If you will.
Like a sheath.
Right.
Right.
I think
all the gear for the rest of time would have to be skirts, because then the Naga wouldn't be able to wear them otherwise. So that's the thing.
It would be the Naga kilt would be the next big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So what now? If there was to be another playable race, what do you guys want it to be? I mean, obviously, Nurian says Murloc. That'd be okay. I'd be okay with it.
I actually was talking about the Naga earlier, but it was the left-handed Naga from Razor. So we did talk about it here.
Right.
So it was on this podcast. We did discuss the Naga.
Right.
So
we didn't think that mice were going to be the next playable race, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
Gosh, next playable race. Whoo. I would probably say the NPC guards. No, I have no idea, actually. I can't think of, because I don't know what other races are out there.
There are,
right?
Well, there are a ton, right? You have ogres. That would be kind of interesting. You have the furbolgs, right? Those crazy little critters around Northrend and northern part of Kalimdor.
Well, I guess I'm partly thinking that, like, I remember like Blizzard when they were talking about Alliance and Horde, like, you've got like your little races, and then you've got your big awesome ones, and you've got your goofy ones, and then they need to be like an equal balance, between the two. And there were complaints that on the Horde side, they're all the ugly races, so they introduced the Blood Elves so people can look sexy, So I don't know what the next one would be, actually.
Liv, do you have a favorite?
Maslu in chat room just said Grummels, which is now my favorite.
They are actually...
I love Grummels.
They are good.
In a more serious response, why does it have to be a race that's already in the game? Because
That's true.
I don't see that. Like, I don't see a reason. Like, obviously, goblins were already in the game.
Yeah.
And were Worgen? I've been listening to Cult thinking, were Worgen? I don't think they were.
Worgen were new, and they kind of created a whole lore around them. I mean, they were always...
Yeah.
I think they always talked about the area. Like, when you're doing questing, like the Blood Elf questing, low-level stuff, because there was this area that you couldn't see, but it was clearly on the map. So...
What about like a dragon? Like a dragon man?
I think, I was thinking about that, like the guys who are in, the Air Dungeon, Vortex Pinnacle. Like those dragonkin dudes who are like not centaur, but centaur. Like that sort of thing almost. But then, like, my God, the armor would be difficult. Yeah. That would be so hard.
But they could
it's got to be.
awesome.
I think it's got to be humanoid. Like, it can't be something with like it's got to be a humanoid race. I think that's something that's going to have to be this.
Sure.
Ethereals and Easy Target said ethereals in chat, and that's something that I've looked at and thought, like the transmog guy. That would be quite cool.
Cool.
But the other one, I was talking about this with someone the other day, trying to remember what they were called, and we think it was the Brunhilde. Which are these
the blue chicks,
the big blue ladies, like the big, the strong-looking blue women.
Yeah,
I quite like them.
The ones that I got my polar bear from.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to be a blue lady.
Yeah,
I gotta tell you, man. Like dragonkin, like lizard, so you got the humanoids, you got the armor, you got a tail, and then you could turn into your own mount. You get outside and your wings pop out and you fly off.
Yeah, that would work. Like, well, I guess the dragons, the aspect. We all see that they're human, then dragon when they want to be, I guess.
Right.
But I know. I honestly think that if there is a new, I don't know whether they're going to go new class or new race at this point for the next expansion, but I would not be surprised at all if they did a new race. It'd be something completely new,
right?
Like completely, because with the Burning Legion, like Outland, like it's all a bit. Ooh. ooh, over there. Like they could totally do. Like someone said in Legendary Chat ages ago, it's going to be further out land.
Yeah.
And like they could totally just say, oh, and we found these dudes over there. What do you think? Like I would be fine with that.
Right. Well, the possibilities really are endless, but this show is not. And we have come to the end of this show, and but before we go, we do have some 5-star reviews that we need to get out there, some shout-outs. Colt, you want to give us the shout-outs this week?
Sure. Here we go. We got Mage Windu and Kono Shono D.
There we go.
Those are the 5-star reviews. And I also have some fortune cookies sent to me for Olivia.
Uh-oh.
Woo.
These are all Shaman themed fortune cookies. Or Shaman? Is that
Shaman?
Shaman, yeah.
Shaman themed fortune cookies.
Yeah.
All right, Zug, do you have any music here for me?
Yeah. Let me bail out of that, first of all.
Bail out?
Yeah, I gotta bail out of that. And then I'll play this.
Here.
There we go.
Here we go. Fortune cookies say, Shaman who wants to learn new thing must go to elementary school.
Oh, boo.
Well, I'm not saying they're great.
Right.
Why did the shaman cross the road? To get to the Manatai.
Oh.
Ooh. One who directs poor adaptation of elemental manipulation is M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
that was submitted by Blaze Star on US Magtheridon, Mordu from CTR Azergos, and Ellen Way on Lightbringer. And that was for you, Olivia.
Thanks very much.
All for you. Terrible jokes for you.
That was
terrible jokes just for me. I'm very privileged.
That was pretty terrible. So we're gonna get out of here on a bad note, unfortunately. But we cannot do this without you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking the time to rate us on iTunes. Thanks for the feedback. Thanks for the questions. Liv, thank you for joining us as well.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you guys out there, you can feel free to join in on all the conversations we're having at any time. You can email us at converttораid@gmail.com. You can call and leave comments and questions on our raid line, 612-787-RAID. That's 612-787-7243. You can follow us on the Twitter at Convert to Raid, or individually. Isn't that right, Coltrane?
Yes, you can follow Pat Crane at Pat Crane. You can follow Coltrane at _Coltrane. And you can follow Darius at Bored Mind. And Olivia, where can we find you?
You can find me at Olivia D. Grace. So that's Olivia, OLIVIA-D, just the letter, Grace, GRACE.
Right, and we can also find you around the world of ZAM, WoW Insider, Gamebreaker TV, and this show now. So,
exactly.
Any other places that we can find you? Because you're all over the place.
I'm everywhere. That pretty much covers it.
All right.
I have Facebook, but it's a carbon copy of the Twitter, so don't bother.
There we go. All right. Make sure to come over to converttoraid.com. That's where we have our show downloads. We have tons of links for raiders. We have the forums over there, all that kind of good stuff. Our show is also available on Stitcher, the BlackBerry Podcast Directory, and iTunes, among all sorts of other places. The Convert to Raid podcast is produced and distributed by Signals Media. Make sure to check out all of our friends on the Signals Media All-Star Network at signalsmedia.com. And that's going to do it for the show. We hope you had a good time. Maybe you learned a little bit about PvP, or the PvP, as Liv calls it. And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on our next show next week. Colt, you're out next week, right?
I am out, and I would also like to give a big shout out real quick to Dark Claw's kids, Daniel, who is 9, and Adrian, who is 8.
Oh, there we go.
They're listening to the show right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, and join us next Sunday at 11 a.m. Central for all the guys that Convert to Raid and Live too. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. And I made it out before the end of the music. That's awesome.
Whoa,
Well
good
done,
job, man.
sister.